Your biggest problem in life isn't what you think it is. It's not your job. It's not your partner. It's not your bank account. It's something much more uncomfortable and much closer than you realize. People are very good at locating problems out there. You'll hear it every day. If only I made more money. If only my partner understood me. If only the world was fairer, I'd be fine. But that entire pattern of thinking is deceptive. Because the real issue, it is no surface level concerns. The real issue lies within, hidden, masked behind stories we tell ourselves to avoid confrontation with our inner chaos. It's not that external problems don't exist. Of course they do. But we almost always overestimate their influence and underestimate the power of our mindset, belief systems, and unconscious patterns. When we shift the blame entirely to the outside world, we give up the very power we have to change our circumstances. Think about it. Two people can face the exact same situation. One collapses and the other rises. The difference isn't the environment. It's their internal architecture, how they process suffering, how they respond to difficulty, and how honest they are with themselves about what's wrong. We live in a culture that glorifies complaining but avoids introspection. It's easier to point fingers than it is to face your dysfunction. But the moment you realize you are the most significant factor in your own life, you reclaim all your power. And that's where real change begins, not outside but within. You are not a harmless creature. And if you think you are, if you imagine yourself as purely good, purely virtuous, free of aggression or resentment or cruelty, then you're naive. And naivete is not virtue. It's weakness dressed in moral clothing. There are parts of you, dark, impulsive, chaotic, that you've never properly understood, let alone confronted. Maybe it's the aggression you suppress, the envy you pretend not to feel, the deceit you justify under the guise of being polite. But those parts exist. And if you don't make them conscious, if you don't articulate them, bring them into order, and voluntarily integrate them into your personality, they will act themselves out, often in destructive ways, without your consent. You'll lie when you should be honest. You'll lash out at the people you love. You'll feel helpless and angry and bitter, and you won't know why. And what's worse, you'll rationalize it. You'll tell yourself the world's unfair, that others are to blame, that you're the victim. But underneath all of that is the truth. You're fragmented, and you're afraid of what you might find if you dug deep enough into yourself to confront it. Now, the real danger isn't in being aggressive. It's in being aggressive unconsciously. The person who says, I would never hurt anyone, is far more dangerous than the one who says, could hurt someone, and I choose not to. Because the latter understands what they're capable of. They have power, and they have it under control. What you need is not to pretend you're good. You need to become someone capable of true destruction, and then refuse to act on it. That's strength. That's maturity. That's moral responsibility. You integrate the part of you that wants to lie, to dominate, to manipulate, and you train it like a dog, not so you can unleash it, but so it doesn't tear your life apart from the inside when you're not looking. So when you walk into the world, you don't do so as a soft, weak, fragile thing pretending to be kind. You walk in as something formidable, dangerous even, but disciplined, controlled, voluntarily moral. And that's not just an idea. That's how you stop being a puppet of your chaos. That's how you become someone worthy of respect, including your own. People don't want to look at themselves, not truthfully, not seriously, because they're afraid of what they might find, and for good reason. Do you think you're who you are because of your strengths? No. Who you are is largely revealed by what you choose to avoid, and what you avoid controls you. The typical person would rather live in the shallow illusion of comfort than confront the deeper truth that might liberate them. You distract yourself with entertainment, with work, with food, with endless stimulation, because you sense at some level that if you were to sit alone quietly and ask yourself honestly, what am I doing wrong? You wouldn't like the answer. And that's precisely why it's the most important question you can ask. You see, your failure to reflect doesn't protect you. It sabotages you. The unresolved problems in your psyche, the habits, the patterns, the betrayals, they don't go away just because you refuse to look. No, they wait. They compound. They accumulate interest like toxic debt. And then one day, they surface. Not on your terms either. They explode in a crisis, the lost job, the broken marriage, the depression that doesn't make sense. And you wonder, where did it all come from? It came from the things you didn't want to admit. You might say, but it's hard to look at myself. Yes, of course it is. It's incredibly difficult. But what's the alternative? Living a life ruled by unconscious forces, repeating your parents' mistakes, destroying everything you love because you didn't dare to face your flaws. This isn't just philosophy. This is practical. Sit down every day and write. Think. Ask. Where am I lying? What do I know I should be doing that I'm avoiding? You already know. You've always known. The problem isn't knowledge. It's honesty with yourself. And that's the hardest kind of truth. But it's the only path to real transformation. Because the man who won't look inward is doomed to be ruled by what lives there. There's this very seductive idea in modern culture that life is supposed to be easy. You're supposed to be happy all the time. That if you're not smiling, if you're not a positive, if you're not content every waking moment, something's wrong with you. Maybe you need more therapy, or more stuff, or more likes on a screen, or maybe you're just broken. Let me tell you something plainly. That's a lie. A childish, dangerous lie. Life isn't about happiness. It never has been. Life is suffering. Life is agony. Life is limitation and loss and betrayal and death. And if you structure your existence around the pursuit of happiness as if it's some kind of entitlement, then you'll fall apart the first time things don't go your way. And things will not go your way. You'll get sick. Someone you love will disappoint you. Or worse, die. Your plans will collapse. And in those moments, your precious happiness will vanish. And if that's all you built your life around, then you have nothing. So what do you do instead? You aim at meaning. You shoulder responsibility. You find the heaviest burden you can carry, and you carry it voluntarily. That's what sustains you. That's what keeps you upright when everything around you is burning. Not pleasure, not comfort, purpose. When you see people truly transform their lives, it's not because they chased happiness. It's because they found something worth suffering for. A reason to get up when it would be easier to stay down. A goal so significant that even the pain becomes tolerable, even welcome, because it's part of something greater than themselves. Happiness might come as a byproduct. Fine, but it's not the target. The target is meaning. The target is responsibility. And if you aim there, consistently, courageously, then paradoxically, you'll become capable of experiencing deeper joy than you ever would chasing happiness directly. Because you'll know that your life matters, and that matters more than comfort ever will. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, let's call her Sarah, raised in a household where emotions were buried under layers of silence and stoicism. If she cried, she was told to toughen up. If she was excited, she was at too much. Over the years, she learned to shut down her emotional responses, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Now, Sarah's in her 30s, and her relationships are a mess. They're unstable, chaotic, and short-lived. She starts to think, and maybe I'm just unlucky with men. Or worse, maybe there's something fundamentally broken about me. But the truth isn't in her partners. The truth is in her past. Her difficulty with intimacy isn't because love is elusive. It's because she's been conditioned to suppress the very emotions that make connection possible. Her trauma isn't loud. It's silent. It lives in avoidance and overthinking and fear of vulnerability. And it will continue to live there until it's confronted. You see, the human brain, your brain is a survival machine. It's built to keep you alive, not happy. And what's the fastest route to staying alive? Avoiding pain, emotional pain. That's the worst kind. So what do? We distract, we scroll, we drink, we blame others. We pretend we're fine when we're falling apart. And here's the kicker. It works in the short term. But over time, this strategy keeps you in a psychological stasis. You don't grow. You don't stretch. You simply survive. And survival is not the same thing as living. Now, here's where things get even more complicated. Let's say you know you should be doing better. You tell yourself, I want to be disciplined, but you binge watch nonsense for hours. You say, I value truth, but you lie to yourself about your behavior. That tension, that's called cognitive dissonance, and the brain hates it. So what does it do? It bends reality. It justifies, it excuses, it rationalizes. You'll say things like, it's not the right time, or everyone else does it too. But what you're rowing is protecting yourself from the truth. And in doing so, you remain blind to what's holding you back. At a certain point, if you've tried and failed enough times, something breaks inside. You stop trying altogether. This is what psychologists call learned helplessness. Imagine a dog placed in a cage where it receives random electric shocks. If there's no escape, it eventually stops resisting, even when the door is open. Humans do the same. You fail enough times and you start to believe that effort is useless, that you're powerless. That life is just happening to you. But the truth is you're not stuck because there's no way out. You're stuck because you've stopped looking. The starting point for change isn't motivation. It's not confidence. It's awareness. You have to be willing to look at yourself. Look to confront the parts of you that are ugly, petty, afraid, angry. That's not easy. It's one of the hardest things a human being can do. But it's also where everything begins. The moment you stop blaming the world and start examining your patterns, that's the moment you reclaim your power. So what can you do? Right now, start journaling. Write every day, not just about what happened, but how you felt about it. Get beneath the surface. Embrace discomfort. Stop running from it. Move toward what makes you anxious. Growth lives there. Seek purpose, not pleasure. Pleasure is fleeting. Purpose is sustaining. Ask yourself, what meaningful burden am I willing to carry? Consider therapy. You can't fix what you can't see. A good therapist can help you uncover blind spots, patterns you've been repeating for decades without realizing. Let me be blunt. The root of your suffering, it's not your job, not your parents, not even your trauma. It's the unexamined relationship you have with yourself. The real war isn't out there. It's inside. And freedom doesn't come from changing the world. It comes from facing yourself. You are not a victim of the world. You are the architect of your experience. When you stop waiting for life to change and begin to change yourself, your perception shifts, your emotions stabilize, and your relationships deepen. Face your inner world, and the outer world will follow.